Hello. I think we're on.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
It says live. Good morning.
I'm going to do my thing. I'm Nicole Shapiro.
I'm Allena and Nekole.
We are raising kids without sexual shame.
Yay.
Right? Trying. Anyway. I have to take this video and post it on our Facebook page of Raising Kids Without Sexual Shame. So, you want to introduce what we're going to discuss
I
today?
forgot what we're talking about. It takes a village to heal. I like that. Some would take a village to heal. That's great. We're going to talk about children in sex-positive communities. How is that possible? Is it okay? How do we talk to kids about sex? Is it taboo to be sex-positive and to talk about it and have children? How do you introduce your children to the wonders of the world that we live in? You know, all of that. Hopefully that's what we're going to talk about. We'll get on some tangent and you'll never know what's going to happen.
Well, so this is taking a second for some reason. So one of the things I was saying that definitely comes up in this conversation is, what does it even mean to be sex positive? I mean, not like that's even terribly clear for everyone. And probably, like many of the workshops that Allena and I do together that are really built around showing how we all think differently about something and often assume that we all think the same.
Yeah.
So I would say that's true also for what sex positive even means.
Well, and sex positive is Sex positive is a fairly new concept in the realm of concept. It's only been around for a decade or so. Well, maybe a little longer than that. I'm involved with...
No, it's been, come on. How long has it been around?
So the Sex Positive Community Center has been around for 18 years. Sex positivity, it's probably not more than 20 years. I mean, it's been around forever, but that concept of verbalizing it and talking about it hasn't been around for that long. And so everybody has a different idea about what that means and how that is relates to them. We at the center that I helped start, the Center for Sex Positive Culture, we try to embody sex positivity at its broadest base. Which for me, sex positivity is that all sexuality is life-affirming, and all consensual sexuality, let me change that, is life-affirming no matter what it is, whether it's for procreation or whether it is for spirituality or whether it's just pure pleasure. As long as it's life-affirming and consensual, it's all okay. And that's something that many cultures and many people don't agree with. But that's, to me, what sex positivity is, in a really kind of shortened version.
Yeah, and my introduction to the terminology even just comes from hanging out with Allena and Terry Chalky. So I was not, I wouldn't say I was like a sex activist for all the decades that they have been. But I was raised by a single mom that was running a massage school and learned how to meditate and be in my body very young. So it was a really nice confluence of ideas and understandings when the three of us would get together and have a chat. So what was exciting to me was, because I've always been taught to celebrate my body, it wasn't hard to then extend that to celebrating sex in my body. And then I think for me personally at that point, as I started really trying to, what's nice about the movement is that it gives me something to anchor that into. And so I started to anchor into just this baseline belief that sex is positive, I could see all the ways that interacting with society have been me interacting as somebody who celebrates what happens in a body, butting up against a culture that doesn't celebrate what's coming from the body. And I got to sort of shake that out and see a little bit more of some of the conflicts that I had been having just being in the world. So all of that is to say that this is a lot of work. It's a lot of consciousness raising to try on the terminology sex positive as an individual.
And to own it. Yeah.
And work it, I would say.
Work
right?
it,
Practice it. Really, someone asked me on one of my pages yesterday, what is integrity? Practice, maybe, I would say, is a big part of practicing integrity, right? We're all fallible, we're all human, but I can practice my integrity.
Right. Absolutely.
So we've both this week, not for the first time, been asked in our separate worlds as we do the work that we do about situations where adults that identify as sex positive, have lived sex positive lives, are in community with other people that do the same. Maybe somebody, in my situation, it was somebody came into the community and has a child. And this has been, navigating that is tricky. What was you had a poly situation, I think.
Oh, mine was, I have a really good friend who's polyamorous and his partner's monogamous. And it's been a new thing that they're navigating. And she has created this amazingly beautiful letter that she created, the monogamous person, for him to share with his potential partners that she celebrates his polyamory. And that is such a big step and such a beautiful sex positive way of dealing with their relationship. And I was just, my heart just got so big when I read it. And I'll be sharing it.
But didn't you have a situation where someone was asking you about kids in relationship to it this week?
Kids in relationship.
No, or we're talking about two separate things?
We're talking about two separate things.
Okay.
Yeah, but I deal with people that ask me about kids in relationships all the time. So.
Well, definitely, beautiful idea. Yeah, it's an amazing letter. So, where my mind goes, and please ask questions if you guys have questions about all of this. Because I also have other friends, I'm trying to think about different things that have been asked of me. Let's say, I remember one of our first Raising Kids Without Sexual Shame brainstorming sessions that we had with the community, 7, 8 years ago. There was somebody there was a polycule who took on a 3-year-old. You remember that?
Yes.
They were raising a 3-year-old in a community that was still a little bit like, what? You're a who? A what? And it went to court. And the court saw that this 3-year-old was being so well taken care of by so many adults because of the poly situation. And that, I would say, required many people to be clear that you can't conflate multiple partners with an abusive situation, which I don't even really know why that ever got set up as a way of thinking.
But it's because I think that we immediately assume that if you're in a multiple partnered relationship, whether it's polyamory, open marriage, whatever, that it's just about sex. And if it's just about sex, then we don't want our children around it because it's just about sex. And, we have to have all that sexual shame. And I see that all the time in poly families where people make assumptions. Well, if you're a poly group, you're not going to have kids. Or if you have kids and, are you going to separate and become monogamous now? And I see that all the time because people just assume that polyamory means just sex. Or open relationships means just sex. And
what does that mean, just sex? Like, that's all you do all day?
That's all you do. That's the only reason you're doing it. You're just doing it for sex. It's like, oh yeah, sure we are.
But what if you are? Does that,
So what? Right.
Yeah, what if you are poly because you like poly sex? Does that mean you stop being a
responsible adult?
Responsible, moral human being?
Well, there's a whole lot of morality judgments around multiple partners.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Is that's part of the stuff that has to fall away, is why do we have these assumptions? And as I talk to different people, I hear different assumptions. I hear, I've heard the fear of women being used in a way, if that makes sense. Like, that why would a woman, this conflation of the only way a woman values herself is if she would have one male partner for the entire rest of her life. And if you do it any other way, that must mean that you don't value yourself.
And especially if you're going to have children. Oh my God. Now, actually, I prefer to have multiple male partners and female partners, and I value myself very highly. But you're right.
But right, these are the things that, so as soon as we become a community, which is part of why this is a really complicated question, is, anyone who's a parent will tell you that challenges all your beliefs of everything about yourself. So if you want and then as we opened up with, if you start to think about what it is to be sex positive, you're opening another can of worms. If we're trying to live with integrity around this topic of sex positivity, we open this big can of worms. So now you've got a community of people. So we've got all the cans of all the worms. Lots of cans of
the
worms.
visual is not happening.
Oh, I love it. Compost.
Compost. There we go.
It's
Yeah,
good.
lots of composting.
So lots of composting, right? So we've got the parenting thing opening a can of worms for any community that's going to consider children theirs, right? This is also part of what we're looking at is how much does the child belong to the community and how much does the child belong to the parents? And that's another forever question,
Yeah.
right? And it'll be different depending on each community and each parent. But how much are the adults that are in community that aren't the parents of the child willing to open the can of worms around what it means to care for children and care for a child, and then do that simultaneously with opening the can of worms of building sex positive culture. Let's just even say building consent culture. Because raise a kid with consent culture, that's a radical thing. Many people are used to manhandling children.
That's right.
And
I think I was raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was no consent. Was a totally unknown concept when I was a child. You know, I had no consent as a kid.
So the nice thing is the compost thing, right? Any of us that are trying to become more conscious, live more purposefully, and raise raise the next generations more consciously. This is a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity, but you're going to seriously up your game. So I think that's about willingness.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question. I'd like to know your thoughts on oversharing, which is clearly subjective. My perspective is if someone asks to tell the truth, there's not necessarily appropriate to others. Can I assume that what you mean is if a child asks a question about sex, do you share? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, in that case, I have my way of doing it is I tell them as much as they need. I clarify the question because kids can ask you lots of strange questions and clarify and say, do you want to know about this? And they say yes, then I tell them exactly the answer that they asked. I don't give them extra information. Then if they want more, they can ask more. Because sometimes you can get too in depth and the kid's like, well, I just wanted to know X, not X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and D. And so you give them information that they ask. And I believe that it's important to tell the truth.
So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say a few different things about this. One is it took me a really long time to really grok that I couldn't talk like an adult to a child, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm not going to give them a lecture on the birds and the bees and they're going to like get it, right?
That's right.
So, there's a thing about pacing, I think, that I apply when I'm thinking about, and it's not to me about appropriateness, it's about education. It's about I'm educating my children about something that they will navigate for the rest of their lives. And I want them to have language and I want them to feel embodied about it. I want them to be aware of their own feelings about it. So I'm usually and I want to be as grounded as I can be while I talk about it. So I definitely don't want to go into a super cerebral place.
And then this part does this, and then that does that, and the kids are like, huh?
I don't think of it as I guess I don't think of it as oversharing. So I think of it more as, am I being present with the child at the time for what they're actually requesting? I do tend to wait till they ask questions unless something comes up that I feel I need to address with them. And usually if something comes up that isn't a question, but I feel like I need to address with them, I create time and space to do that as, again, in a sort of like, hey, I'm going to need to talk to you about something. When do you think we could make a time to do it? I mean, I really do talk to them like that. So, in that context, I find that different ages have different, we know this about anything. Different ages
Absolutely.
have different attention spans. So, when they were super little, they might say, I don't know, what's an example of something that I've said before?
Where do
They're
babies
bigger
come
now,
from?
so I don't remember. I might have a little one come up to me and say, "Why does Daddy look different than Mommy?" Right? And I start to answer, and they walk away. Or you know, uh, I start to answer, or I'll ask a question. A lot of times I ask. I got my older got mad at me the other day because I do this. They'll ask me a question, and I ask them a question back. And so, I might say, like, well, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah,
He's got something that sticks out, and I don't. And yeah,
that's right.
it's called, do you know what it's called? You know? And they probably already know. I mean, I've tended to, so I guess I don't think so much of it is oversharing. Now let me think about that. I shared a story on our Raising Kids Without Sexual Shame page a while ago that was around abortion. And, as the kids get older, they ask more complicated questions about things. So we were in a dialogue about some things, and the topic of abortion came up. And I would say that was one of those moments where I was like, maybe wondering if I was going to be oversharing. And, just like anything conscious, I had to make a choice. And so I decided that abortion is a part of sex education and that it's not a bad idea for my preteen daughter to be aware of it now and for her to be aware of it from my mouth. The other part of that is then we support this thing we call about our parent about being sexperts, which this is interesting as we start to talk about community, right? Because so I want to be as comfortable educating my children around sexuality as I can be so that I'm the person they come to. I want them to know that they can talk to me about it and that they'll get a real answer so that they keep coming to me and talking to me about it. That said, there may be times where they don't want to come to
That's
me.
right.
And we can hopefully have members of our community that they have relationships with and feel there's enough intimacy and comfort. So you want to talk a little bit about how you've done that?
I have been doing that for years for people in my life. My best friend when I was in my late teens, I was with her the day her first and her second were there, her born. She has these two amazing kids. And I was Auntie Nina. That's my nickname is Nina. And I was the person that they could come and talk to. My agreement with them was they could tell me anything and I would not tell their mother what we talked about unless I felt it might be endangering their lives, which that never happened, thank God. So that means they could come to me and talk to me about sexuality, about drugs, about things that they were scared of or afraid of, and that they couldn't quite come and talk to their mom. I'm the one that found out about my goddaughter having sex. She comes to me and she goes, Aunt Nina, I'm straight. And I'm like, what do you mean you're straight? She goes, I tried sex with a girl twice and it didn't work. And I was like, and she was so bummed. It was so cute. But we were able to have those conversations. My goddaughter's older brother, I'm the one that the first time we talked about homosexuality and worked with his misbeliefs around that. It was me, not his mom. And I did that with another friend's daughter, and I've done that. I have that agreement with anybody that I have where I'm around their kids. If they want me to be that person, I'll be that person. Because sometimes it is hard to go to mom, especially when you're a little older. Your kids now are at that age where it's easy to talk to you. But there might be a point when they're in their teens where they're like, I don't want to tell my mom how I'm feeling about that. I have a granddaughter, and I have no idea if she has a great relationship with my son and his wife. And we've had some amazing conversations about sex and sexuality because I'm really open to listening to her and answering those questions. And I give the answers that I give as much information as they need and want without I don't overshare either. I just tell them what it is, and then we keep talking about that. Um, my son, when he was 11, we were watching TV and there was a thing about teenage pregnancy. And he looks at me and goes, "Will I get grounded if I get a girl pregnant?" And this was our first talks about sex. It was back way in the 80s. And I said, "Yeah, for a long time." And then we had a great conversation about what that meant.
You say it's called parenting?
It's called parenting. That's exactly what I told him. I said, for at least 18 years, you know. But it was a chance for us to actually have a great conversation. And it was just out of the blue.
But that's a great example about the oversharing, right? Like, that I think is related. It's not exactly the topic of oversharing. You know, what I would say, Joe, is it could be used. What I find useful. So I'm thinking of a number of things, partially connected to Joe's question and partially connected to this topic of in community. So what is finding our edges? Like, any of us that have any skill in knowing what an edge feels like. I brought up the abortion topic. I found an edge there. In order for me to own that edge, I needed to grapple with some shame. I needed to use different tools that I have at my fingertips to get to the point where I could make a conscious choice that felt like I was respecting what I was trying to accomplish, who I am as a human being, and who my child is as a human being. So I would say around a topic like children in the community, in sex positive communities, we're going to need that tool basket quite a bit. So if there's any topic that you're in a mode of like, maybe that's oversharing, that could be something you personally find as an edge. I might not be ready to share this, and you get to decide that. Or it might be a relationship edge. It might be something someone else in your community is saying, I'm not comfortable with you saying that. At that point, you work it as a relationship edge. What's in that space? I mean, just like this letter you're talking about, it for this woman in the mono-poly thing. Like, there's an edge. It's taking months. It's taking months.
It's taking months for them to get there.
And what do we all learn about ourselves when we're in relationship with another human being and we treat each other with respect and we come up against our edges and we are willing to let the can of worms open so we can compost it, so we can grow a new tree. So I hope some of that's helpful. The other thing I was thinking while Allena was sharing about being anti is trust, intimacy, and also context. So I say that we're sex educators every single day. As parents, we're sex educators every single day, whether we admit it or not, whether we're conscious about it or not. One of the aspects for me of being a sex educator to my children is to let them know it's a very heated topic. Let them know that there's a lot, that you will get different ideas from different human beings. That ultimately it is part of their job on this planet to figure out what their own relationship is around sex. So I create as much of a platform for that as possible of autonomy and sovereignty and erotic authority.
You don't create a mythical world of, oh, it's going to be so wonderful always.
You know, when I went to my mom when I was little and I said I wanted to read her to read me Cinderella, she said, "I'll read it to you, but there's no Prince Charming."
Yay, Mom.
And then she teases me because now she's like, "And look, you have a Prince Charming," which isn't exactly accurate, but you know, I ended up in a way more traditional situation than I was raised to end up in. I can relate to the girl who was like, "But I don't want to be straight."
Sometimes you just don't, you know. It happens.
Someone was telling me the other day that when they met me, they were sure I was a lesbian. And I was like, yeah, because I was raised by a lot of lesbians. That would make total sense. So, anyway, so as a parent in community with people, humans, I want to give my children as much sense of sovereignty as possible and a critical understanding. So that makes me feel far safer to I'm not worried about people talking to my children about sex so much because I've handed them critical analysis.
Right. Yeah.
I've handed them, yeah, you might have one family that really believes this and another family that really doesn't believe that. And at some point you're going to live, I mean, you're going to live the life that you live in alignment with what you think is right.
But getting that kind of information is really valuable. If they're only getting information from one source, from just mom and that's it, and it's nothing more than, especially not sex positive parents or parents who are struggling with their own belief system and stuff, then the kids don't have that broader umbrella to learn from. So giving them critical thinking and then saying it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to talk to Auntie Nina or to somebody else, grandma or whatever, and find out how they feel about things, then your kids get a well-rounded worldview, and they get a chance then to make conscious choices from a variety of information versus just that little piece that I got when I was a kid, which was nothing
Well,
at
and then
all.
to anchor all of that into this sense of sovereignty, to
Right.
anchor it all into, and you will figure out that to say to my kids, like, and you'll do what you do, and you'll come up with what works for you. I think that as a parent, that makes me feel more comfortable knowing that they will talk to other people about sex and they will be impacted by. I mean, one of the points that Joe Langford makes in his talk is that your child will see pornography. Statistically speaking, the chances are your child will see pornography the first week of middle school.
It's kind of an amazing statistic.
And he really makes the point that he's not against pornography. But there's a difference between sex education, pornography being the archetype of what sex is for children versus they have an understanding of what it is, and they have he says he makes this point where it's like, it's not only that they're going to see pornography, they're going to be expected to have an opinion about it. They're going to be expected to have conversations about it. So if we already have prepped them to have a relationship with the concepts of sexuality, where they are aware that it's a thing and they've thought about it, then when they see that pornography, it'll be a piece. It'll be just another.
It's no piece of it.
It's just a piece of it, as opposed to if it's the first time they've ever been oriented to it, it could create that foundation because we haven't already created that foundation. Does that make sense?
I'm trying to think. My first explicit sexual anything was not really pornography.
You mean, yeah? What do you mean by? Be more specific.
Seeing something that was explicitly that had something was Playboy, Hustler. Hustler, maybe it's Playboy, I think, maybe, that my uncle had. I used to babysit for him. And reading a book that had, I remember getting turned on by her warm, moist inner thighs. That was it, right? But I had nobody to talk to. I mean, like zero. There was nobody in my life I could ask questions about. So I had to teach myself. And that was pretty frustrating.
So,
and
but
I
what
made
I
a lot
hear,
of mistakes.
what I hear in that too is that you had ascertained not to talk to anybody about it.
Oh no, I asked my stepmother.
Oh, you did?
I did. I asked my stepmother about where. I mean, I have to give her some credit for one thing she did. I said, I was 11. Where do babies come from? Whatever, And she says, "What do you think?" And I can't remember the words I used. And she said, "You're right." I mean, I figured it out already on my own. She says, "But the right word is penis and vagina." And then she never said another word about it. So she did give me the right words. I have to give her that credit. But then that was it. There was no other conversation. In fact, I come from a really religious family, so sex was completely taboo. I don't really think I already knew when my parents had sex because my stepmother douched afterwards. And the douchebag would be out. And that would be it. And they didn't do it very often. It was a lot of sexual shame because, super religious families create sexual shame. So that's what I grew up with. So I just had to figure it out on my own, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I said yes way too many times, and I allowed myself to be taken advantage of. And part of it was because I got, and there was no sex education in school in the 60s. None whatsoever. You learned about your period, that was it. So there was nothing that was there for me. And I survived it, but I didn't survive it without a lot of pain.
So we're about to sign off, and I want to give everybody a homework assignment.
Homework. Yay.
Um,
I love homework.
I would say anybody that's interested in the topic of children in sex positive communities, give yourself some time to think about what that even means for you. Like, just take 5-10 minutes and write or speak into something or whatever is your best medium. What does it mean to you to have children? What does it mean to you to have children in a sex positive community? You might find that you have a fantasy idea of some freaked out things. You might find that you're actually doing it and you just didn't even realize that that's what was happening. Homework. You might find different permutations of what that could look like. You could consider simply the fact that you have a lot of adults around you that are comfortable talking about sex and you have children is what that means for you. You could be somebody that's finding a lot of reward in being in a community of mostly people without children as a part of your own support. And now you have a child, and so you're trying to figure out what that would look like to work that into. You might be one of the adults that doesn't have children, but loves children and considers themselves sex positive. And what does that mean for you? Hi, Christy. So, yeah, I think I'll sign off with that homework assignment for you. And if any of you want to share it,
Please feel free to.
please share it.
Yeah.
And we'd love anything that you're willing to share anonymously on the Raising Kids Without Sexual Shame page. We love to put it up. It really is a community page. Bada bing, bada boom.
Have a great week.
Enjoy your last day of Obamahood. See y'all later.